Does this make you feel like Indiana Jones or something?
Dun, 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 dun. Oh wait, I probably can't do that or I'll get copyright fined. Yes, it would actually make a really good hideout and does kind of make me feel like Indiana Jones going on a secret adventure. Like I'm waiting for the ball to the stone to come rolling down here.
Just don't move any levers.
Duck!
We have spent the last 2 days at Capitol Reef National Park in Utah, hiking, exploring, reverting to van life because we've been camping on BLM land. And it's been a great couple of days. This park is, I was going to say amazing, but that's your word.
Well, you're stealing my word.
It's going to become a drinking game for our channel. How many times you say amazing? It's incredible. How about that?
Capitol Reef National Park is considered one of the Mighty Five here in Utah. And as we had heard and now have experienced for ourselves, it is one of the most underrated and least visited of all of the five here in Utah. We had heard that it had sort of been like, oh, it's a half-day park. You can just drive through it. There's a nice scenic byway. But if you really want to get up and close and see what this park has to offer, it's definitely a multi-day park. And I'm glad that we spent 2.5 days here.
Yeah, I mean, the Scenic Drive through here is really something to see. Just it's the water pocket fold is what the reef is, right? Which I'm not even going to try to explain the geology behind that, but look it up. It's really quite interesting. But so you can see a lot while you're driving, but then, you know, there's a number of pullouts where you can see things, that kind of stuff. So I do recommend, if you don't feel like you can hike this park, don't just skip it. I mean, there is something to see here. But if you have the opportunity to hike it, and if you have the opportunity and the ability to hike the more moderate and strenuous trails, is when you're really going to see what this place has to offer. And that's what we did with some of the tougher trails. And I'm glad we did those. We're a little sore from it, but I'm glad that we did them.
We're getting ready to hike Chimney Rock Trail at Capitol Reef National Park. This is actually going to be our first official hiking trail at Capitol Reef. We've done a little bit of sightseeing here, but this is our first trail and we're really excited. It's early in the morning and we're going to go out and find Chimney Rock, hike some elevation and enjoy the scenery.
We were laughing though, we've been hiking on rocks and sand and all kinds of different kinds of rocks because that's what's at Capitol Reef. And we sat down here in a nice shaded area to film this and you're like, this doesn't look like Capitol Reef at all. Do you want to explain where we're at?
We are in the Fruita district, the Fruita historical district, I should say, because this was where the Mormon settlers and pioneers ended up coming, and they established a little community here and they built an orchard. So it was fruit trees, and hence the name Fruita, that they sort of established a name for themselves. And those orchards still stand today. And so we're sort of sitting in one of what used to be an orchard. Now it's a really nice picnic area, but the orchards are still here and you can drive by them. And at certain times of the year when the fruit is in season, you can actually go in and pick the fruit. And as well as they use it to make homemade pies and other things that they sell here at the national park.
We will talk about some of the trails that we did, some of the highlights, just to get an idea. There's so much to do here, but just to give you an idea of what we did and what you might want to do while you're here. But since we're talking about Fruita and the fruit, we also have to talk about the pies at Gifford House. So Gifford House is a historic home. It was one of the homes that was here in this area. And that is still, it's operated as a store and a museum and a bakery. So we ended up actually, on our second day here, we got up super early because you had planned on getting one of the famous pies that they make here at Gifford House, and that required some additional scheduling.
The Gifford House opens at 9 every day, and there is a line when you get there by 9 a.m. because everybody wants the pie, because they do sell out pretty quickly. And it's not just pie, but they also have cinnamon rolls, and then there's other things to buy like jam or bread and butter pickles, other things in the shop. And since we had gotten there too late in the day before, I knew that I wanted to be there right at 9 to get our pies. So that meant getting up early and being on our first hike by 7 a.m. to make sure that we got off the trail and to the Gifford House by 9 a.m.
One of the best parts about hiking at Capitol Reef is the pies and the cinnamon rolls that you can get at the Gifford House. So we went on a hike at 7 a.m. this morning so we could get back in time to get in line at 9 when they opened so that we could get breakfast.
If hiking isn't your thing or you simply don't have time, do not miss this park. For sure, you can just drive through it and see the water pocket fold and understand why it's called Capitol Reef. That's worth a stop at the visitor center to understand the geology behind that. All I know is that the earth, a fault and the earth rose and it made a really cool mountain range. That's basically what you need to know. But it's not really a mountain range. It's It's a fold
not.
in the Earth's crust.
Yes, that's the mind-boggling part. It's a fold in the Earth's crust, but everything's fine. But apparently there's crust folded here. I'll say this about Capitol Reef. I don't remember ever doing so many 360 videos, but once I start shooting, I just keep turning around in circles.
I was going to try to come up with a new word for it's amazing, but we're just going to stick with yeah, because it's amazing.
Here at Capitol Reef, it's extremely important that you check in at the visitor center to find out if there are any trails that are closed, because there's a couple major ones here that are sort of built down in washes. And when it rains, those have a potential for flash flooding, and it damages the road. So they actually physically put gates across those trails and roads, and you are not allowed to go down there. And such was the case when we arrived on Friday, and we had a plan, and we were like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and this is what we're gonna do on Saturday morning. And two of the trails that were gonna be our main focal point were closed. So we said, okay, well, plan B. And we looked at our list of all the trails that we had decided that we wanted to hike, and we settled on Chimney Rock because it was in a different location. It was a higher elevation trail. And so we kind of had to make that split-second decision. But the only reason we really even knew that was because we had stopped in at the visitor center to find out all of that important information.
Well, and it actually worked out quite well because Chimney Rock has a very small trailhead parking lot. So we decided, well, let's do that first thing in the morning on Saturday. And we were, the third car there maybe. And it's good because when we got done with the hike, it was packed. So we did Chimney Rock. That was the elevation. They said it's like a 590-foot elevation change. That sure felt like more to me.
Just,
and I don't know why. And there's some trash flowing through the park. So we're picking up after other people, but that's okay.
I think they just lost it off their picnic table.
It's fine. It's windy today. But no, so anyway, what I was saying was the elevation change. It says 590. I thought it was.
It felt higher than that.
A lot higher. And I think it's just because the first section of the trail, you're like almost all of the 590 feet, I think, is in the first
straight up
half mile. I don't know.
And they say it's switchbacks, and there weren't as many as I was expecting. So it was a pretty good uphill, strenuous climb. So not for the faint of heart, but definitely worth the views.
Oh, I should mention, speaking Chimney Rock, because we both got confused. We thought we were hiking to Chimney Rock. Chimney Rock is at
It's right at the trailhead.
It's at the trailhead. We realized that basically when we got all done. So if you just want to go see Chimney Rock, you could pull in, get a picture, see it. You don't have to hike very far. But it is still worth going on that loop. It's a lollipop loop trail. And then we actually extended and went into one of the canyons that comes off of it. And so we added to our hike. Why? Because it's us. Have you ever hiked with us? Up and over? Or up and over?
Yep, up and over.
Because we're not water, so we're not going through that little space there.
I mean, I could. I don't know about you. Pretty sturdy. This is the recommended route. Or down and under. I made it. I don't know how many other people would be able to do that, but there are advantages to being little.
The recommended route for people over 5 feet is to go up and over those rocks. We discovered a number of years ago, I learned it the hard way actually, I always hike on trails like this with gloves now, because you never know when you might need to just grab a rock as you're going over it and you don't want to worry about cutting your hand, or it's just extra dirty and you're going to eat later and it's less cleanup. So a good pair of gloves always comes in handy. Handy, get it? Huh.
But that spur trail was really nice. I mean, it was away from the people and off the beaten path. And so if you do have the ability to do that, take that extra time and go down that wash and then come back.
I've brought this up in other videos about hiking in national parks. I'm going to say it right now so I don't forget later. Take advantage if you have the feature on Gaia where you can download your maps beforehand, because there is no cell service in this park.
No,
like,
none.
anywhere.
None.
There is Wi-Fi available at the visitor center, and you will find a lot of people hanging out, updating stuff on their phones or trying to contact loved ones and let them know they're okay, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's the only way you're going to get any kind of service here. It's not even like, we've been in other parks, it's like, if you get high enough, you might get a signal. Doesn't matter. You can be as high as you want here and you're not going to get a signal, or down in the canyons, there's no signal. So keep that in mind. But yeah, I thought it was a really good trail, and I'm glad we kicked off with that one.
All right, going back to the visitor center again, we got done with Chimney Rock and we decided let's go stop in and see if they could give us an update on what was going to happen with those 2 trails that were closed. And by golly, they were open again. It had dried up enough and there was no threat of any impending storms, and so they had reopened them. So we got back on track, and our next hike ended up being the Capitol Gorge hike. So that's about a 2-mile dirt road drive in before you get to the trailhead, which is gorgeous in of it itself. And then you get to the trailhead, and then you can walk down this wash, and you're basically walking between the canyons. And what's really neat about this one is you've got a lot going on in this one particular trail. You've got petroglyphs from the Fremont Indians who were here in I don't know how many hundreds of years ago. And then you've got what they call the Pioneer Wall, and that is where the historic settlers, as they came through in the late 1800s, early 1900s, came through that wash on their wagons, and they all carved their name on the Pioneer Registry. And it's really cool. I mean, it's just the dates and the names, and some of them, how they carved in cursive, I have no idea. And then some of them shot their names into the wall, and others just carved their names and dates. But that's really cool to see all the whole historic names of the people that came through here, and some of them who ended up settling here in the Fruita area. And then if you keep going, you end up in something called the Tanks. And that's a pretty good steep hike up out of the wash into the sort of the top of the canyon walls there. And it's essentially these like water pockets where when it rains, the water collects, and then different little brine shrimp and algae and things grow that are a different part of the ecosystem. And so you can hike up and see that. And luckily, because it had rained just a few days ago, there were water in those, but you wouldn't always see.
That was pretty steep and a pretty good climb for a while there. So that part of it, I would say, is a strenuous part of the hike. But Capitol Gorge itself, the wash is pretty easy. So if people want to hike down and
that's
do that,
like
that's
flat, like really flat.
You got to watch you walking over rocks, and you're basically walking through a riverbed, right? Kind of is what a wash is. And so you got to do that. But and the road in is 2-wheel drive. We did it in the van with no problem. If it's wet, clearly it's going to be a problem. If it's too wet, they shut it down anyway, so you don't have to worry about it. But yeah, I think most people could get in there and do it. It's a good one to get in and kind of see some of the landscape of what it's like to be in a wash and be in the gorge. And like you said, the Pioneer Registry is there. So it's a neat one to do. We did those 2 hikes on Saturday and then spent part of the day just kind of doing the scenic drives, doing some of the scenic turnouts and looking at things. And that's always fun to do as well. And then Sunday morning, which is today is Sunday. And we already mentioned that we got up early for pie. We got up early. We got up early to hike in order to get pie.
And cinnamon rolls.
And cinnamon rolls, yes. But because of the location and our timing this morning, we thought if we could get up and knock out Hickman Bridge, that'd be a good one to be able to do. And then we go get pie. And I'm glad we did it. It turned out to be a really nice trail.
It was better than expected. I'm not sure what we expected, other than I had been told that it was sort of one of the touristy things to do and that it was relatively easy. Now, I don't think relatively easy would be how I would describe it. It wasn't super strenuous, but it wasn't easy either. I mean, it's not flat by any means. You're hiking up some pretty good elevation, over some good slick rock. You're rewarded though by this gorgeous view of the Hickman Bridge and then getting to walk under it. And it's a natural bridge that's been carved out of the stone due to erosion, water, wind, what have you. And underneath the bridge then are names of, again, the settlers who had come through this area and that they had explored it. And so their names, again, from 1895 are carved in there, and as well as some pictographs of, I'm assuming the Fremont Indians and their handprints that are up along the wall as well. So that was, I would agree that was definitely worth the hike. It's about 2 miles round trip. Relatively, we did it in, about an hour and a half or so. Depends on how much you want to stop and take pictures and take your time.
Depends how motivated you are to get to pie so before they sell out. We're hiking the Hickman Bridge Trail at Capitol Reef National Park, and this is a prime example of how things can change very quickly when there is rain, because right now it's very dry and sandy. There's a lot of rocks around us. It looks very desert-like and kind of an abandoned canyon sort of thing. But when it rains, water will come rushing through here. And if you follow me over here, this slick rock actually becomes a waterfall. And then there is a pool where the water collects before building up and continuing on its way. So it's just odd to stand here and think at times of the year and certain times of a week, maybe this could be a waterfall.
We were the third car in the parking lot, and the parking lot was full when we left.
So by 9,
it was full.
So that's something to keep in mind. The parking lots here are not huge for the trailheads. None of them that I've seen. So that's something to be aware of. And a lot of the washes, the roads you go to, the trails, that kind of thing, like Capitol Gorge, for example, they have signs on them that say a 27-foot maximum. Like if you have a longer van or a Class C, you can do it. But the problem is you might be able to get in and out of there, but the parking lots are going to be a little tight.
It's going to be very tight in many places.
If you have a larger vehicle, you definitely want to get there early so you have some options for your parking. I guess that would be my suggestion. The next trail we did today was Cassidy Arch Trail. That takes off. One of the ways you can get to it is from the Grand Wash Road, which you drive down, and again, another dirt road that closes when it's raining. And then you end up at the Grand Wash Trailhead, which again is not huge.
No.
And that's actually for 2 trails there, because people either go into the Grand Wash and you keep going down that for a while, and there's a Narrows down there as far as we know. We did not make it all the way down there, because what we did was we turned in about a quarter or 3/10 of a mile off of that to hit the Cassidy Arch Trail. And go up and see that. Cassidy Arch is named for Butch Cassidy, apparently, because they thought maybe he had a hideout in the wash at one time. Nobody knows for sure. There was probably some outlaws hiding out there, we figured.
Oh, yeah, it would be a great place for sure.
Great place for outlaws to hide out. Maybe not anymore, but in the 1800s. So this is one, and I don't remember what it's rated. I want to say moderate at least.
Oh, no.
Or strenuous. It should be strenuous.
I'm pretty sure it's on the...
Let's check the map.
Oh, no. Cassidy Arch is definitely on the strenuous.
And it should be. This one's a good size elevation gain. You are hiking up. Sometimes there's steps. Sometimes there's slick rock. Sometimes there's rocks.
Sometimes there's sand. Sometimes there's all of the above at the same time.
Sometimes there's sand on the rocks. It makes it slippery. If anything's wet at all, it's going to be slippery.
You're not doing that one when it's wet. Not at all.
They're going to shut it down pretty quick.
It is really nice that the national park puts in steps, because otherwise this would be pretty slick rock and pretty dangerous. So they've allowed us to get up here, which is really nice of them. Like that. Okay, case in point, next section of trail, pretty much climbing up the slick rock.
But if you can do it, the strenuous hike was worth it. It is a really neat hike. You can see some amazing views on the way. I keep taking your word. Amazing views on the way up. And then you can hike all the way to the arch and actually get up right on top of the arch and see it.
Well, don't go on top of the arch. You do not, despite what everybody else is doing, do not go on top of the arch, because as far as we understand, it's pretty much illegal to go on top of arches anywhere in a national park. A, it's a safety risk, but B, all you're going to do is wear it down, and it's just going to erode it that much faster. And so future generations aren't going to be able to enjoy it. So, stand back from a distance. But when we say on top of it, you're essentially behind it on this big overlook. So it's really kind of hard to explain, but the way it's carved, you can end up standing behind it and taking a look down through it.
You're basically, I'm assuming, however many millions or thousands or whatever years it took to build for this thing to form, is you're basically standing on the rock that it was probably a part of at one time, and then it all eroded out and became this arch. So that's when I say you're standing on top of it. You're on top of that rock structure that it was formed from. So that's when definitely a good hike. Something you want to be careful about. There's times when you're hiking along and it is you're pretty close to the edge. You've got to watch because the trail disappears at times, and you have to watch for cairns to make sure you're still walking in the right place. So there's all of that to keep in mind, and you want to be safe. I would mention though, and we've talked to other hikers that were here, Capitol Reef seems a little more freewheeling than some of the other national parks in terms of they kind of say, look, here's some trails. They say on the maps that a lot of the hiking trails are not maintained, and everything is at your own risk. So, safety is your responsibility. That's a lot of their signs. They say that as well. So you have to keep that in mind, that there's plenty to see and do here. but you need to be responsible for what you are doing and your actions. You commented like, how did they come through here with wagons? You know, you think about people coming through with wagons, and especially when you see the Pioneer Registry in the Capitol Gorge where they stood on the wagons to get, because the names are up pretty high.
Oh, they're very high.
They're up high on the wall.
It's just mind-blowing the amount of work and the effort and the dedication that these folks had to continue and move and settle west. I mean, we just get in our car and go, and now we get to enjoy the fruits of their labor. But man, that would have been a rough life.
Well, keeping the washes open from the rocks, or keeping the snow cleared in the wintertime, or dealing with the flash floods that would come through periodically. I mean, this community of Fruita was never very large before it. I mean, finally, the last people were here like, what, 1961 or something, right?
It was quite late. They said their first tractor didn't arrive until 1940. I mean, they were using all hand materials out here because it was so remote that you really couldn't get anything here.
Yeah, so I mean, it was hardy folk who were trying this, and even then they couldn't make it go. But I mean, like the school, there's a schoolhouse here. They built a one-room schoolhouse for the families that were here. The first teacher was 12 years old. One of the original settlers. Apparently one of the brighter 12-year-olds. I don't know, but she was teaching the younger kids, and so. But that school went until 1941. And so it's a really interesting history. That is one thing. Make sure if you come to this park, there's a lot of geology going on here, but some of the history of the settlers and what was going on with them was super interesting to learn as well.
We really enjoyed Capitol Reef National Park, and we think you'd enjoy it too. And so we encourage you not to skip this one. It is kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and there's a local town that does have a little bit of lodging, but otherwise you're probably going to need to be a little bit self-sufficient. There's a campground here at the national park, but it was full the entire time we were here, and I'm thinking you're going to need to make reservations far in advance. However, it is surrounded by BLM land, and you can camp out there for free and disperse camping, and so that's what we did.
And we stayed in 2 different places on 2 nights, not because we had to, but because we wanted to. The options were there and we took it. We found some beautiful views and got some great sunsets and sunrises. And you got out one night and did some star photography. So, seeing the great, it is an international dark sky park. So there's a lot going for this place. If you get a chance, get to Capitol Reef National Park. In the meantime, keep on trekking.
And we'll see you out there.
So after we shot this video, we decided we had enough time before we had to leave the park to do one more hike. And we were crazy enough to do a strenuous hike. And it is listed as strenuous.
With a little bit of moderate in the middle, but it's strenuous on both ends.
Yes.
And a little bit in the middle.
Worth it. It was really cool. It was the Cohab Canyon Trail and just lots of different things to see along the way and up there. So if you're up for a strenuous hike, maybe don't make it the last one of the day when it's the hottest part of the day.
But do make sure you do it.
It's worth it.
Oh, your head looks kind of funny.
Why?
Like you're too close to it or something. That's weird. Right, but I guess I was too far the other direction.
Right.
All right, I'll get behind you. I was blocking the... Okay.
This might be the blooper reel. Your head looks funny.
Well, now my head's blocking the rock. See, I was
Well, you can just lean over.
All right.